Chapter 4. Cunning Savagery Beneath Facade of Modern Civilization. In modern society, barbarism spreads like a virus, continuously evolving. They often paint tempting facade and con beautiful coats to deceive, infiltrate, harm, and even destroy human civilization without realizing it. Therefore, recognizing barbarism and exposing its deceptive tricks should become a consensus and an urgent task for all people striving for progress. Let's begin by examining some examples of deceptive barbarism. 1. Many people, including overseas dissidents, hold the following views about the three CCP leaders after Deng Xiaoping. Jiang Zemin is sly and reactionary, benefiting the most from the suppression of the Tiananmen Square protests. He directly led the persecution of Falun Gong. Xi Jinping is seen as an uneducated fool, obsessed with restoring the Cultural Revolution, and even aiming to revive the imperial system, so he is certain to be rejected by the people and will end in failure. As for Hu Jintao, he is often viewed as a moderate, with a reserved personality and humble demeanor, seemingly a soft leader of the CCP. However, the truth is quite different. For instance, during his tenures, Hu raised the stability maintenance budget to astronomical figures, surpassing even the military budget. Moreover, it was during his leadership that Nobel Peace Prize laureate and renowned dissident Liu Xiaobo was arrested and sentenced, and ultimately died in prison under Xi Jinping's regime. Liu could have survived. He had multiple opportunities to escape or apply for political asylum abroad, but he misjudged the CCP authorities, particularly Hu Jintao, whom he mistakenly believed to be willing to launch political reforms. This led to his arrest, conviction, and eventual death in prison. It's no wonder that many still view Hu as a moderate. This is precisely where the deceptive nature of barbarism operates. Even Xi Jinping's feigned ignorance is a form of playing the fool to catch the tiger. Deng Xiaoping referred to himself as a primary school student in front of American politicians, using the Sino-Vietnamese War to ingratiate himself with the US politicians. Jiang Zemin showed off his linguistic skills, and Zhu Rongji played the Eru in Japan. All these CCP leaders were covering up the brutal internal repression of democracy and human rights, while externally striving for rapid ascendancy and infiltration to fulfill their ambition of world domination. Let us strip away their alluring facades and expose their true barbaric nature and hideous fangs to the world. 2. Under the guise of security, anti-terrorism, stability maintenance, and epidemic prevention, the entire country has been transformed into a vast prison. From adding walls, gates, and security guards to student dormitories and residential areas to strict security checks, billions of surveillance cameras, and even roadblocks, district closures, city lockdowns, and coercive door-to-door virus disinfection operations, the CCP's daily violations of freedom and human rights are increasingly severe. 3. On one hand, the CCP's state-controlled media remains silent about the Tiananmen Square massacre, blocking all anti-CCP discourse and silencing voices of democratic activists, even suppressing any related information, a uniquely Chinese 404 phenomenon. On the other hand, they have never ceased their persecution of activists akin to those involved in the June 4th movement, yet, on the surface, the CCP portrays itself as abandoning autocracy and embracing economic development. This is another example of deceptive barbarism. 4. The spokespeople at the Taiwan Affairs Office, in order to deceive Taiwan into reunifying with mainland, claim that as long as the One China principle is adhered to, anything can be discussed, even the possibility of a federal system. Is this true? No, they are simply lying under orders. Once reunification is finished, who will dare propose a federal system or power sharing? Anyone suggesting such ideas will be quickly arrested or even eliminated. The fall of Hong Kong should serve as a warning to the world, exposing CCP's terrifying and grotesque true face paint the beautiful facade. 5. Many high-ranking CCP officials' children do not take their father's or mother's surname. Why? Some humorously claim that despite the CCP holding power for over 70 years, it still lacks confidence in its legitimacy as a ruling party, maintaining the mindset and practices of an underground organization. In fact, their actions stem from a deceptive barbarism, as this allows their children to secretly inherit power or receive preferential treatment. Ordinary citizens are aware of CCP's inner workings, and the connections between the so-called princelings and interiorist groups are mainly revealed by overseas anti-CCP dissidents. The general populace either knows nothing about this or is skeptical when they hear rumors, making it difficult for them to awaken or resist. They continue to mistakenly believe that the CCP is more progressive than the dynasty of Jianjin, Taiwan or Kim in North Korea. However, if it weren't for that bowl of fried rice, the one to succeed Mao Zedong in 1976 would have been Mao Ai, who was killed in a bombing during the Korean War in 1950. Whether this is true or not remains uncertain, but Mao's repeated efforts to remove his potential successors, including Liu Xiaobo, Deng Xiaoping, Lin Biao, and Wang Hongwen, suggest that he indeed sought to create a cult of personality combined with a dynastic system. The end of the Cultural Revolution, the arrest of Jiang Zemin, Mao's third wife, and the fall of Hua Guofeng were merely the result of internal palace struggles within the Mao's family. Li Peng, Zhou Enlai's adopted son, had his real identity hidden until he retired. His children's information was again treated as a state secret, while details about his illegitimate or adopted children were even more tightly concealed. Hua Chunying, a high-ranking CCP official's daughter, deliberately does not use her father's surname Qian, and Meng Wanzhou, the daughter of Huawei's founder Ren Jingfei, similarly does not carry her father's surname. This reveals a widespread practice among CCP elites of concealing their children's identities. Their deceptive barbarism is so pervasive that even the lesser officials are adopting similar stratagems. My knowledge of the CCP's officialdom is quite limited. However, based on what I know, it is common for government officials and senior executives of state-owned enterprises to arrange for their family members or relatives to be placed in each other's departments and given important positions. This practice not only facilitates the exchange of power and sharing of interests but also helps conceal their illicit collusion. It is evident that their cunning and scheming are quite sophisticated and their methods are remarkably shrewd. 6. As famous professor has pointed out, the CCP excels in linguistic corruption, glorifying reactionary acts, and vilifying righteousness. They beautify rule-breaking as hidden rules, call their oppression of the populace stability maintenance, label secretans' sudden arrests as double designation, describe malicious killings as passionate murders, and frame the rape of young girls as prostitution, etc. These fabrications are not just word games, they are part of a broader cultural revolution aimed at corrupting the people's minds, confusing the masses, and ultimately destroying traditional Chinese culture to stabilize the authoritarian regime. CCP is truly barbaric and deceptive. Teachers and cultural media professionals, as disseminators of culture and civilization, have been completely enslaved and castrated by the CCP, and students who receive cultural education are likewise suppressed, castrated, and destroyed. Beneath the peaceful facade of false civilization, the vast majority of people's cultural aspirations and moral foundations have been eroded. Recent years have seen an alarming rise in student suicides, which hints at the underlying problems. Yet mainstream media and sycophantic intellectuals continue to paint a picture of a peaceful, harmonious society in China. 7. From General Marshall abandoning the Kuomintang to support the CCP during the Chinese Civil War, to Nixon in the 1970s abandoning Taiwan to support China's entry into the United Nations, to Clinton and George W. Bush continuing to support China's accession to the World Trade Organization after the Tiananmen massacre, U.S. politicians have repeatedly misjudged and been deceived. Is it that Americans are too foolish, or that the CCP is too cunning? And let's not forget Chinese peasants who make up 80% of the population. These individuals were more than willing to shed blood and risk their lives in the CCP's fight for power. Yet, after the CCP seized power, did they fulfill their promise of land reform? Not only did the CCP fail to repay the peasants' sacrifices, but they also institutionalized their oppression, reducing peasants to second-class citizens. The so-called 3 years of natural disasters period sottens of millions of peasants starved to death, yet they never revolted on a large scale once again. Are the Chinese peasants simply too kind and naive, or has the CCP's deceptive facade been too alluring? 8. After the 9/11 terrorist attacks, despite the 50-cent army and Little Pinks celebrating in madness, CCP leader Jiang Zemin was the first to call U.S. President George W. Bush to offer condolences and support. Jiang even issued a statement condemning the terrorists and supporting the USILD war on terror. Under Jiang's charm, Bush was moved, leading to a strategic partnership between the U.S. and China. However, what was the outcome? The U.S. spent nearly $3 trillion fighting a 20-year war in Afghanistan, crippling its economy, losing the trust of its people, and facing international criticism. In contrast, the CCP quietly took advantage of U.S. support, becoming the world's second-largest economy. Politically, with the U.S.'s tacit approval, China expanded its influence on the global stage, engaging in extensive infiltration, suppression, and undermining the very civilization it claimed to support. Now, Xi Jinping openly challenges universal values and global order, provoking military confrontations with the US and democratic nations. This once again demonstrates the CCP's successful use of deception, with the US falling for the same trap once more. These examples clearly highlight the dual nature of the CCP's strategy, its deceptive and barbaric tactics masked under the guise of progress and cooperation. Some have compared US-China relationship to that of the peas and snake, a story from Aesop's fables, suggesting that the US helped China develop into the world's second-largest economy, only for China to turn against the US. However, this analogy is flawed, at least not entirely accurate. In the story, the snake is only vicious, without the deliberate cunning and deception that China has employed to mislead the US. As is well known, false peace can be more harmful than open war. So, hypocritical civilization is more dangerous than ordinary barbarism. I've always found the US's favorable attitude toward CC somewhat baffling, not just a misjudgment. Whether in the 1940s and 1970s, when the US callously abandoned the Kuomintang, or after the Tiananmen massacre, when the US rashly extended olive branches toward CCP, it demonstrates that America's democratic and rule of law path was more a matter of chance, a fortunate absorption of Western European civilization. Americans lack a profound understanding of the inevitable transition from rule by religion to rule by law, and they have an even weaker recognition of the fragility of civilization and the cunning of barbarism, which still requires further ideological enlightenment and awakening. Another crucial issue to address is the misconception that there are a few good people within CCP. First, today's Communist Party members are devoid of faith and principles, an evil organization full of venomous snakes and decaying corpses, with few remaining decent individuals. Even if such individuals ever existed, they have either left or been purged. Moreover, the CCP's system of governance is both historically and morally indefensible, exerting brutal internal repression and brainwashing while externally infiltrating and deceiving. Therefore, the problem is not whether there are good people within the party or not, but that the party itself must be ousted from the political stage. If it commits crimes in this process, those people involved must be punished by law. We must not confuse right and wrong by holding onto the notion of good people within the party. If there are any, they must abandon the darkness and join the light, publicly renouncing the CCP and calling for justice with the cry of to be sons and daughters of China, Naverto be successors of Marxism-Leninism. 9. Now, let's examine the truth behind the deceptive image of Li Ziki. Initially, when I saw a few of her online videos and heard nothing else about her, my first impression was that it must be of beautifully crafted falsifications, a commercial hype designed to attract attention. Later, I stumbled upon some facts that not only confirmed my initial impression but also revealed more. Public information mentions a creative team of around 10 people behind her, but that was just a facade. The real force behind her rise to fame is a major financial clique linked to the Chinese Communist Party's elite. It's said that the team promoting her has over 500 employees. Li Ziki is nothing more than an actress, akin to the female protagonist of the Japanese film Little Forest. What is despicable, however, is that she has transformed her performance into a documentary and used social media to deceive audiences into thinking her lifestyle was real. Her video shave garnered billions of views and created an idyllic, pastoral fantasy. With the support of countless online nationalist 50 Cent Army members, her videos became increasingly popular. They not only echoed the CCP's Chinese dream propaganda but also served as an important cultural tool to penetrate international audiences, widely publicized and flaunted. After watching Li Ziki's realistic lifestyle videos, who could still claim that Chinese peasants are second-class citizens? They appear to live a life in paradise, relaxed, peaceful, hardworking, competent, and self-fulfilled. They enjoy a life of freedom, with poetic labor in the fields, owning lands, vegetable gardens, orchards, forests, and cozy courtyards. They plant whatever fruits and vegetables they like, cook delicious food, and even engage in handicrafts during the off-season. It all seems so idyllic and fulfilling, and they appear to be capable of doing anything. In reality, Li Ziki is a beautifully crafted facade constructed by CCP, using capital and power. Women dream of being like the graceful, free-spirited woman in the show, while men fantasize about having such a hard-working, kind, and beautiful woman by their side. The capitalists make huge profits off this, while CCP politicians use it to cover up their barbarism, hiding their greedy and ruthless rule over the Chinese people. 10. Authoritarian regimes, so-called democratic elections, are nothing more than prearranged entertainment shows. The various representatives attending such meetings are often mocked as three-hand representatives. They clap their hands in approval of the leader's speech, normally just reading the transcript, raise their hands in agreement with the leader's policies, and at last shake hands and take photos with the leader after the meeting. These representatives are typically from the ruling class or its affiliates, who are guaranteed political promotion and financial benefits before or after the event. 11. The so-called independent referendums under Russian armed threats are a modern-day farce similar to the ancient Chinese tale, pointing at a deer and calling it a horse. The idiom, pointing at a deer and calling it a horse, comes from records of the grand historian, Shiji. After Qin Ershi, Emperor Hu Hai, ascended the throne, famous powerful court official Zhao Gao wanted to test the loyalty of the ministers. He pointed at a deer and called it a horse. Some ministers, fearing Zhao Gao's influence, agreed with him, while others insisted it was a deer. Eventually, Zhao Gao eliminated those who opposed him and seized control of the court. This idiom is used to describe situations where someone deliberately distorts facts, confuses right and wrong, or coerces others into accepting falsehoods. Russian soldiers, armed and aggressive, went door-to-door in Ukraine land, demanding that Ukraine citizens vote on independence and voluntarily join Russia. In 2014, they successfully used this despicable and childish method to forcibly occupy Crimea. At that time, the international community did little to stop Putin. What was the point of merely condemning and refusing to recognize it? Then in 2022, they used these same tactics to successfully occupy large parts of eastern Ukraine once more. Despite the NATO-backed US sending massive weaponry to Ukraine, they never sent troops or declared direct war in Russia. Even the weapons sent were short-range and less powerful, while urging Ukraine not to strike Russian territory for fear of provoking nuclear war or World War III. Don't you find something odd here? The fragility of civilization and the cunning of barbarism are often most apparent in politicians. As we all know, democratic politicians, elected by their own people, are always under public scrutiny. They must constantly satisfy the people, be polite even to their political opponents, and strive to complete their term, hoping to win re-election once again. Their governance is cautious and conservative, often appearing timid and lacking in character, but this is the essence of democracy and civilized rule. In contrast, the rulers of autocratic regimes often gain power through family inheritance, conspiracy, or violent coups. They rely on manipulation and violence to maintain power, typically serving for life or passing the rule down within their family or faction. They wield total control over the state and its resources, surrounded by sycophants, eunuchs, and lackeys. They also nurture and condone a loyal cadre of cruel officials and enforcers. Over time, these rulers become self-absorbed, believing it is easy and delightful to dominate the people, openly proclaiming, "Those who follow me prosper, those who oppose me perish." Once accustomed to ruling domestically, they inevitably begin coveting the land and resources of neighboring countries, while also infiltrating democratic nations. If some autocratic rulers have not yet waged wars of aggression, it is only because they feel their military and economic power are still insufficient. When their weakened international powers are watching over them, they may feign peace and development on the surface while secretly building up military strength, waiting for the right moment to strike. When they believe their domestic rule is solid and international powers are busy with their own business, they will provoke disputes and start wars, aiming at occupying more land and resources. Therefore, it is proven that as long as autocratic rule continues to exist and expand, international conflicts and crises are inevitable. If some democratic politicians, either due to weakness or bribery, adopt a policy of appeasement toward autocratic regimes, or worse, ally with them, global crises will certainly erupt, and humanity will face unavoidable disasters. Autocratic rulers are continuously harming their own people while threatening the entire democratic world. However, it is evident that we cannot rely on those politicians of democratic nations to safeguard the progress of human civilization. So, where do we go from here?